So, first of all, happy Halloween weekend to everybody. I know a lot of you are probably celebrating early and getting your parties in and doing your stuff. Everyone be safe. Do the most, and then do the most in the safety regard, too. That said, a couple interesting things today. First off, I guess I failed at getting both Tony and I to the pumpkin patch for a hayride for the second day in a row. But we both tried. We were unsure of the exact time that we were supposed to be there to make the hayride deadline, as it were. So we're going tomorrow, and we're gonna win. We're gonna get it this time. That hayride, we're gonna it up. We're gonna ride twice. I'm gonna ride once, pants on. Second time, nothing. Completely bare naked. No, I'm playing. All right. So now, down to brass tacks. Heard from a very good friend of mine today. Very, very good friend. Extremely good friend, as a matter of fact. One of the first people to make me feel like welcomed and accepted back in junior high, and then in high school, kind of a safety net falling into freshman year, as many of you know, of course, is a pretty detrimental time for one's well-being as far as feeling safe is concerned. So, cheers to him for that. Anyway, heard from him, and we go long periods of time without speaking with one another, and it always winds up being like we fall right back into it. As soon as we get on the phone, it's like, "Hey, what's up?" And like instantly, we're like cracking jokes, and it's like we never lose time. I mean, of course we do. Like now, I'm like older and balder, and he is, in different shape as well. So better shape, in my opinion. So the interesting thing was that he's the first person I've told these things where I'm like, hey, like this is where you were important to me. This is how you helped shape me. And I mean, man, if there's anyone that can fit the bill of a positive influence in my life at an early age that a young man or a woman desperately needs, and I think we can all agree here is necessity, because we are all very impressionable at that age. But to have someone be such a positive influence, such a wholesome influence at a young age, and to be so welcoming and hey, like, you're with me now, you're my bro, like we're hitting this together, man, like this is the music I listen to, what about you, these are the TV shows I watch, like, are you into wrestling, like that kind of thing. It's all very wholesome, and I could have been doing much worse things. And so with that, it makes me realize and reflect on what my childhood and adolescence was like in comparison to probably many others who had bad influences surrounding them constantly, and what an utter shame it may be how that influenced the rest of their lives, whereas mine was very good, very wholesome, very, very very good natured. So I thanked him for that, and for the very first time out of this entire adventure, the thank you came so naturally. The thank you came so effortlessly, as if he knew that he was doing it all along. As if he knew that that's what he was doing. That was his purpose. That he knew he was doing it at the time. As in, yeah, I knew you had nowhere else to go. That's why I had your back, man. Kind of attitude behind that sentiment. Which I honestly, I'm not sure that was the case, but it definitely seemed like it, and I was very grateful for, even more so now that it seemed that way, because now it was like, oh, it was all intentional. And if you're watching this, you know who you are, but like, thank you again. However, I also didn't get necessarily the opportunity to tell him all the things that I wanted to tell him, but it's not going to be our last conversation. We'd agreed that, hey, man, our conversation, a half hour for us, guys who have known each other for almost their entire lives, like 25, 27 years, like 30 minutes ain't gonna cut it. He was like, man, mother, we need 10 hours. and I couldn't agree more. So I'm looking forward to the remainder of those 9.5 hours. Get an alarm clock, man. And a little side note here, which is really, really surreal, was that I got to meet his kids over the phone. He was like, "Hey, kids, this is a friend that I grew up with in high school. We met at your age," and they were both very, very timid, very shy, kind of thing, and very adorable. But they're playing the same video game right now that him and I were playing when we met, and became friends, and it kind of threw me for a loop at how incredibly surreal that whole experience was. Like, wow, like this is like the next generation of us, like I suppose, right? And I wanted to leave some kind of parting words, and he goes, "Oh, they're shy," and I was like, "Hey, I was too," and he goes, "Yeah, he was too." And I tried to say something, akin to like, "Hey, don't worry, it gets easier," or something like that, and like, "Nice to meet you," and like, "Bye," and being really friendly, and you know, I hope, I remember talking on the phone with relatives when I was much, much younger, and thinking that, man, I'm in that same position now. I'm just a relative on the other end of the phone, and like, were they in the same shoes? Like, what do I say? What do I, in this one moment that I have, this one fleeting moment that I have, to leave some little mark on them, some little bit of advice, some little bit of anything that is like in some way positive, right? You can't let that pass you by. And I'm not exactly sure if it ever was lost on me whenever some of my relatives were speaking that to me on the phone. I'd like to think it wasn't. And even just as probably surreal, he carried me around the house, and he was like, hey, mom, like, you remember Jordan?" And like, she was like, "Huh? Who?" He's like, "Jordan, he used to come over here all the time." And she was like, "Oh," and like, he showed the camera to her, and she goes, "Oh, you look the same." We never change in their eyes, ever. We never will. Like that. It's kind of how I feel, I guess, about a lot of you guys, is that you'll always be what you were in my eyes back when, like, whenever it was we last parted ways, whether it was years or months or decades at this point. You'll still always be what you were to me. And that's important, because that shows that you have stayed with me this entire time. So, I was always thinking of you in some way. So, I'm excited to nurture this continuation of all of our friendships in some way. That while it may have been, put on hold or put on pause, I feel like that's too strong. I feel like that's also inaccurate, because it was never put on hold or pause or anything like that. It was growing in separate directions, different branches that are all part of the same, tree, after all. And we meet, and here we meet again, for a lot of you, after so many years, for me to be able to tell you these things, and for some of you to even tell me some of those things, which has been absolutely delightful and enlightening. I'm happy to meet you again later in life, and I'm even happier to continue that and build on that, what we once had, whatever it was, whether it was small, big, or even maybe in some cases it was nothing at all, and now it is something, and now it is beautiful, and now it is profound. So thank you all for that, actually. So that's a widespread thank you. You're all awesome for that. And to the guy I talked to today, the guy that was much the same that I talked to 10 years ago, to the guy that was much the same that I talked to probably 5 years before that, and to the guy that I went to school with, and then I went to another school with before that, who helped me come out of my shell, and, allowed me to believe that I was worth some kind of kinship, some kind of brotherhood. I actually can't thank you enough for being who you were to me at that age. I look forward to more talks with you, man. I'm really, really looking forward to it.